All right, guys, free to choose. Free to choose. We're on chapter 8. Who protects the worker? Free to choose who protects the worker. Chapter 8, who protects the worker? This one's called government. It's not that long at all. In addition to protecting union members, government has adopted a host of laws intended to protect workers in general. Laws that provide for workmen's compensation, prohibit child labor, set minimum wages and maximum hours of labor, establish commissions to assure fair employment practices, promote affirmative action, establish the Federal Office of Safety and Health Administration to regulate employment practices, and others too numerous to list. Some measures have had a favorable effect on conditions of work, most like workmen's compensation and child labor laws, simply embodied in law practices that had already become common in the private market, perhaps extending them somewhat to fringe areas. Others, you will not be surprised to learn, have been a mixed blessing. They have provided a source of power for particular unions or employers, and a source of jobs for bureaucrats while reducing the opportunities and incomes of the ordinary worker. He's saying the market could have figured out itself, We didn't need laws. We didn't, I don't know. I don't know. So OSHA is the one he was talking about right here. The OSHA, yeah. Office of Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. OSHA, who's people, if you ever work construction, people talk about OSHA all the time. Office of Safety and Health Administration. So OSHA is a prime example, a bureaucratic nightmare that has produced an outpouring of complaints on all sides. A bureaucratic nightmare that has produced an outpouring of complaints on all sides. As a recent joke has it, how many Americans does it take to screw in a light bulb? Answer, 5. 1 to screw in the light bulb, 4 to fill out the environmental impact in OSHA reports. Oh, it's funny. So all these people they hire to do paperwork. Insane, right? Instead of actually getting work done. Government does protect one class of workers very well, namely those employed by the government. Montgomery County, Maryland, a half-hour's drive from Washington, D.C., is the home of many senior civil servants. It has the highest average family income of any county in the United States. Montgomery County, Maryland, a half-hour's drive from Washington, D.C. It's pretty much in Washington, D.C. Is the home of many senior civil servants. It also has the highest average family income of any county in the United States. 1 out of every 4 employed persons in Montgomery County works for the federal government. They have job security and salaries linked to the cost of living. At retirement, they receive civil service pensions also linked to the cost of living and independent of Social Security. Many manage to qualify for Social Security as well, becoming what are known as double dippers. I think a lot of these people are probably family to the government. Many, perhaps most of their neighbors in Montgomery County also have some connection with the federal government as congressmen, lobbyists, top executives of corporations with government contracts. Congressmen, lobbyists, top executives of corporations with government contracts. Like other bedroom communities around Washington, Montgomery County has been growing rapidly. Government has become a highly dependable growth industry in recent decades. All civil servants, even at low levels, are well protected by the government, according to most studies. Their salaries average higher than comparable private salaries and are protected against inflation. They get generous fringe benefits and have an almost incredible degree of job security. As a Wall Street Journal story put it, as the civil service regulations have ballooned to fill 21 volumes, some 5 feet thick, civil service regulations. So they are doing service for the civilians, civil service. They service for us. We're the civilians. We're citizens of this state, of this country. Government managers have found it increasingly difficult to fire employees. At the same time, promotions and merit pay raises have become almost automatic. The result is a bureaucracy nearly devoid of incentives and largely beyond anyone's control. Of the 1 million people eligible last year for merit raises, only 600 didn't receive them. Almost no one is fired. Less than 1% of federal workers lost their jobs last year. So that's a Wall Street Journal mentioned that. So end quote right there. But I want to know what devoid is. Devoid. 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 Devoid means completely wanting or lacking. So the result is a bureaucracy nearly devoid of incentives. Like it's almost like these people aren't incentivized to do anything really. Like what's the purpose of their job really? Like, what do they actually do? To cite one specific case, in January 1975, a typist in the Environmental Protection Agency was so consistently late for work that her supervisor demanded she be fired. It took 19 months to do it, and it takes a 21-foot-long sheet to list the steps that had to be gone through to satisfy all the rules and all the management and union agreements. The process involved the employee's supervisor, the supervisor's deputy director and director, the director of personnel operations, the agency's branch chief, and an employee relations specialist, a second employee relations specialist, and a special office of investigations, and the director of the office of investigations. Needless to say, this veritable telephone directory of officials was paid for with taxpayers' money. This is written a while ago. Needless to say, this veritable telephone directory, this is only making me like Trump even more, honestly. Like, I'm trying to find a way, like, fuck, what are they doing? People getting fired, but needless to say, this veritable telephone directory of officials was paid for. So this veritable telephone directory, like veritable, like obvious, like this obvious telephone directory. He's just being analogous. If you open like an old like Yellow Pages telephone book, it says has so much. He's saying there's so much just stupid shit that's just not necessary. It's funny. Avoid. Completely wanting or lacking. So what does veritable mean? Because maybe that word's coming up in other books I'm reading. Being in fact the thing named and not false, unreal, or imaginary. Veritable.
Veritable.
Being in fact the thing named and not false, unreal, or imaginary. At state and local levels, the situation varies from place to place. In many states and in large cities such as New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, the situation is either the same as or more extreme than in the federal government. New York City was brought to its present state of virtual bankruptcy largely by rapid increases in the wages of municipal employees, and perhaps even more by the granting of generous pensions at early retirement ages. In states with big cities, representatives of public employees are often the major special interest group in the state legislature. In states with big cities, representatives of public employees In states with big cities, representatives of public employees are often the major special interest group in the state legislature. In states with big cities, representatives of public employees are often the major special interest group. Talking typically the lobbyists. They're the ones. They're the special interest group in the state legislature. Meaning they're the ones who push for certain policies and laws that will benefit them. Legislature, the legislation, the Senate, Congress, that's Congress. The Senate and the House, they're the ones who write up laws. And the president has power to veto those laws. And then you go to the Supreme Court, there's checks and balances, separations of power. I don't know exactly what happens. I should know a little more, but it's interesting.